It's quiet. The kids are out. First time in 8 weeks. Any working parents out there will know exactly what's been going on. I've got the coronavirus haircut. If you're watching this in 2022, remember way back to that crazy summer in 2020 when the world went, yeah, well, we're right in the middle of it. So I thought I'd just take a minute while it's quiet to have a little bit of a lowdown on where we're at with the AJP PR7. Thank you to everyone who commented on the previous video. Really interesting, really exciting to see so many people got an opinion about this. I guess the first thing to say is the DVLA are still not open. The bike still does not have a registration plate. I still cannot ride it. I have done a whopping 8 miles up and down the track outside my house. That's the most I've managed to do. So if you are looking for a long distance review of this bike, if you're looking for a review of anyone that spent more than 8 miles on this bike, you're not going to get it here. If you want to have a look at someone who has done some good miles on this, have a look for Roger on, I think it's Roger or Rogier, on YouTube. He's a Dutch guy. He's taken it to Mokro. He's got really good in-depth stuff about his mods. He's got the Doma exhaust. He's got the new Thork Racing ECU remap on it. And I think, you know, I haven't found anyone else out there, English speaking at least, that's done as much on YouTube as him. So really go watch after this video. Okay, so a lowdown on the bike. I'm just going to go from top to bottom and just talk through some of the features that have kind of stood out for me so far, just from spending some time looking at it really and sitting on it, and like I said, just going up and down the track waiting for this whole crazy situation to calm down. So big feature on this bike is the navigation system that comes with it. As standard on the bike, it comes with a tablet attached up front. So that tablet is supplemented by a regular speedo below. The look of the bike and the tablet is very rally, it's very road book. I think it's a real kind of great idea of AJP to include the tablet, because essentially it is a simple Galaxy A6 tab, which means nothing to me because I'm an Apple user. But I went online and it's worth, I don't know, I think you can pick one up for like 100, 150 quid. They're not hugely expensive, but all of a sudden you have a very interesting navigation device as standard on this bike. It is not connected to any of the bike data, software, speedo, etc. It's totally independent. So there are pros and cons to that. One of the pros is that you can take it off, you can replace it, you can put your own version on, you can fiddle with it, it's not going to interfere with the bike, etc, etc. It's completely independent. The con really is, okay, you're running off the speedo, for example, is running off the GPS as opposed to the bike. The kids are back. That was a short-lived quiet moment. Anyway, as I was saying, you're not going to get a temperature gauge that's reading the temperature from your radiator. Maybe you can put some aftermarket stuff on all those things to wirelessly send the data, but as standard, you're not. So yeah, so it's an independent device. It comes in this So the navigation device, the Galaxy Tab, is housed in this plastic housing that comes standard. It's an AJP product. If you open it up, you can see, take out, it literally is just a Galaxy Samsung Tab. This one has a nice unicorn sticker on the back. That's not standard. Anyway, it also has a USB socket underneath that's powered up through the same wiring. So essentially that navigation device at the top of the bike gives you a Samsung Galaxy Tab and a USB socket. It comes with an app preloaded that auto installs. No, it comes on with the bike. You don't have to go through any kind of setup or home setting. But okay, the app is the home page, and that's a drive mode, or it's the free version of drive mode. And that's from a company been developed by a guy called João. It took me a while to figure out how to pronounce João's name, but he's a Portuguese software developer. He also has a company called Throttle Racing, and he's been working with AJP to develop this app. So there's a free version that comes with the bike. It's very quickly promoted to upgrade to the paid version. I did that. It was £5. It's really cheap, and then you get all the full features of the drive mode app, which is a pretty sweet bit of software. It's constantly getting updated. I'm on the Facebook group now for that app, and I think users are really encouraged to feedback what they want from that, and João is pretty quick to apply that. So the main, you can go and have a look and see all the features, but the main features from the bike's point of view are you have a speedo on there, pretty big. You've got some quick links area where you can add, if you install other apps onto the device, you can make the home button so those apps appear in your dashboard. And then there's a really fun little roadbook tool. So obviously that's essentially acknowledging that this bike is a semi, as standard, it's a semi rally bike that you can obviously make more rally worthy, but it's a nod to that. And it's got a really neat tool for reading roadbook digitally on that, which I'm really looking forward to playing around with a bit more. And then the other big feature of the drive mode is the mapping. So essentially you've got on this bit of software, or you've got on your navigation device, the ability, your speedo, yeah, that's helpful, it's in your face, but really it's the mapping. And that ties in really neatly with the Trans-Euro Trail app, the TET app, which João's also developed. So these two things are designed to kind of work together really, really well. So if you download the TET app, that then allows you to essentially bypass the TET website. It bypasses any need for something. So for example, I normally have a Garmin Montana 610, and to get my routes onto that, I go onto the website, I download it, I then that's on my computer, then I put the GPX file that I've downloaded into Garmin Basecamp, and then I transfer that onto my Garmin device, which is great. It's quite long-winded. What the TET app allows you to do is literally tap a button and it'll appear. The GPX file goes straight into your Samsung device. You then open that within the drive mode and away you go. It is so simple. And having worked on the TET project, and I'm responsible for the TET website, it's been a real eye-opener to see how simple that is. It's quite, I guess the other big point about the TET app is that when you're on the route, you can really quickly report any problems. So the community are really kind of encouraged and enabled to maintain the routes on that project. Anyway, we're not here to talk about the TET app. Just to say that it integrates really, really well onto this device. So I guess the last thing to say about that Galaxy Tab is that although it is an independent device that isn't talking to the bike, it is wired up to the bike's power. So it powers on when you turn the key, it powers off when you turn the bike off. When you kill the bike with the kill switch, and I'll come onto that in a minute, the navigation stays on. So yeah, it's been well thought through, put it that way. Okay, the kill switch. Why am I talking about a kill switch? Okay, it's, I guess if you know, you know, all right? If you are a road rider and you are used to just riding, say, the T700 on the road, and you don't really do any off-road stuff, when you get on the bike, you turn the key, that primes the pump, you hit the button, and away you go. When you come to stop, you turn the key off, you get off the bike. Simple. If you're a trail rider, you will know that you are constantly on and off the bike. You are powering the bike up, you're killing the engine, you're stopping to wait for friends, you're stopping to get off and open a gate or whatever. Basically, you might be out for 8 hours on the bike, but the bike might only do 5 engine hours, and literally 3 hours of that will be the bike just sitting there waiting to be used in one way or another. Very different to road riding, really. So if I take the T700 out trail riding, I will be riding along and I'll come to a gate and I will have my hands on the handlebars. I will then be faced with either putting the bike into neutral, getting off and leaving it. Okay, the bike is on, it's getting hot, it's not moving, it's also not in gear, so if the ground's not level, it could roll, and essentially it's just bad practice, really. You know, you're leaving a bike, you're making more noise and more fumes when you don't need to. So what most people do is you get there and you would take your hand off and you would turn the key and get off. That's the way to kill the bike. Or you hit the kill switch on the T700. Great, you've killed the engine, but you still get that little warning on your dash, don't you, that you're using battery and the oil light is still on. So essentially you're not really killing the engine in the way that it wants to be killed, which is with the key. Conversely, on the KTM 450 EXC, there is no key. It's literally just an on button. So when I'm riding along on that and I come to stop, I'll either just stall it or I'll hit the kill button on that, and that'll kill the engine. So the PR7 has got a really well thought out kill switch. It's just very, very slightly different, but it really works. So I'm riding towards a gate and the engine's on and I stop and I push the kill switch in and that kills the engine. It keeps the power to the navigation device, but it kills the engine. That switch stays in. I can get off and do whatever I want to do. Then when I want to go again, I push the kill switch again and it comes out. That then primes the engine, and then I've got the starter button and away I go. So unlike the T700 or a road bike, you don't end up leaving the key on in the on position, the engine off and the warning light on. It has a sequence designed for getting on and off the bike a lot. If you know, you know. If it may sound like a bit of why am I talking about this and getting so excited about it? I think I am getting excited by it because it demonstrates that whoever developed this bike does what I do and has built it around those needs, which is fantastic. You'll find this a lot from online reviews of the bike. It feels snatchy. Again, I've not had it out of third gear, but up and down the track, going in first, it is quite snatchy. My bike's completely standard. It's got a standard exhaust and it hasn't had any remapping or anything. It's a single cylinder, so kind of some of that snatchiness you would expect. But again, when I compare it to my EXC, my 450 EXC, it's you roll off the throttle and you really feel it. I don't know if you'd call that engine braking or what, but it's very, very responsive. There's a lot of aftermarket stuff I think that you can do to change that. I think physically there's a different throttle tube, I think, that you can put on that. And also the Thork Racing ECU remap is designed to smooth some of that out as well. I know watching Rogier's video, he's just put the ECU on that. He basically says that if you're used to riding a twin or an inline four or something like that, any single is going to feel snatchy. He's not that bothered by it. I'm not that bothered by it. I don't know, I think that maybe when I start to do some more technical stuff on this bike, like going up the H, it might lead to a little bit more stalling, but who knows, we'll have to wait and see until I get out. The handguards on there are the Acerbis ones, so I think they're plastic all the way around. They don't have any metal parts on them. They feel pretty sturdy, they feel pretty good, but I'm going to upgrade those to Bark Busters. One of the reasons why I'm choosing bark busters and not Cycra, so I have got Cycra guards on my EXC. I only just discovered this recently talking to Chris at Adventure Spec. So the bark busters are one of the few handguards that are designed for long levers. So when the bark busters handguards are on, they keep enough gap between the metal bars and your long adventure bike levers. So, and now that he's told me that, I have noticed the Cycra are almost touching the tips of my KTM levers. So they're going to get upgraded for bark busters pretty soon. The airbox. As I mentioned at the start of this video, it's super high and I love it. It's literally right in front of your nuts. It's the highest part of the bike that's not the handlebars and screen. I like doing water crossings. Adventure riding for me definitely involves water. And the KTM EXCs all have, I mean, they're not really adventure bikes in that respect, they're kind of enduro bikes. So they have their big foam air filters down, kind of, it's below the seat, behind your knee. And that's constantly an issue when you're doing water stuff. And it kind of really changes your, well, for me, well, actually, no, it doesn't. Basically, I just go for it anyway. And if I drown my bike, I drown my bike. But it's going to be nice to know that I've got an extra, literally an extra foot of clearance from an EXC to this PR7. The air filter is super high. And again, it just demonstrates to me that whoever designed this bike knows what adventure riding is all about. As standard, I think it's a paper filter. In there, it's not as easy to get to as an EXC. An EXC, you just literally pop the side off, and I think they're designed to be changed a lot, the air filters. Whereas this, you've got 4 screws to undo, and it is a paper filter. You can get a foam filter that makes it a lot easier to clean and replace. And I think I'll probably upgrade that pretty quickly. I don't think they're that expensive. Paper filter's fine, I think, if you're not going to be getting it wet. But if you do get wet, obviously it is a paper filter, you're going to kind of, you know, it's going to deteriorate pretty quickly if you do. Not that I'm planning on getting my air filter wet, if I can help it. Fuel. So the bike has a 17-litre fuel tank that is carried at the rear of the bike. Below the seat, and the whole rear of the subframe essentially is a fuel tank. That's very similar to a KTM 690. What makes this different is that the fuel cap, fuel filler, is at the front of the bike, just below the air filter. So one of the great things about that is that if you have luggage on the bike, there is no issue with refueling. So with a 690, you might have something on the back and you have to move the luggage out of the way to access the fuel cap, or you have to choose luggage that will accommodate that. Whereas on this bike, the rear of the bike is, you can put whatever you want on the rear of the bike, you're not being affected at all. It carries when you've got the bike full, it carries the weight quite low. I can't tell you how that affects handling because I haven't ridden it enough. Other than to say that on the T700, the Yamaha T700, the fuel tank is right up at the top and it's really high. And when that fuel tank is full and you're just walking it around the garage and outside, it puts the center of gravity so high that it really kind of, whenever you slightly off center, that bike wants to fall away from you or fall into you. I haven't experienced that at all on the PR7. So again, I think it just demonstrates that it's been really well thought out. The fact that we want to carry the weight of the fuel on the rear and low, but still be able to fuel it from the front without any drama. So yeah, big thumbs up on that. Okay, so the seat. So one of the big things that people do when they adventurize their enduro bikes is they'll get a seat concept seat, which I've never sat in one, but by all accounts they're very comfy. Comparing the KTM EXC seat to the PR7 seat, I mean, it's not necessarily a fair comparison because the EXC is, you know, it's an enduro bike, you're meant to be stood up on it, but my God, that thing is like a plank of wood compared to the PR7. I'm not going to say that the PR7 is exactly like a sofa. You can get much more comfortable seats, but it is very, very comfortable compared to an enduro bike. I think I would be pretty happy riding long distance on that seat. It widens out at the back. It stays quite narrow on the front for when you stood up. Yeah, I think it would be comparable to a comfy seat concept seat on a 690, I think. I don't have first-hand experience, but yeah, it's good. The seat height, yeah, I'm short, the bike is tall. It's not so tall for me. I think I've just got used to riding tall bikes, so I really don't get fazed by it, but definitely can't get both feet on the ground. I can possibly not even really get 1 foot on the ground and stay in the middle of the bike. So my technique is quite often to swing my backside off one side and kind of hook my leg over while I put my foot down. It's tall. Not a lot else I can say about that. You want to see a tall person ride this bike? Watch Rogers. He's a very tall Dutch guy, typical Dutch, and you know, I think he can get both feet down comfortably. But yeah, that's the seat. So luggage, I've not done a trip on this bike yet, so I haven't really had to put luggage on. I've got an OS base, so I might try that out. Krieger OS base, I imagine that's going to fit. It's pretty versatile. I imagine that's going to fit pretty well on this bike. It doesn't really have any anchor points. There's no foot pegs on this bike anyway. And the rear of the bike is largely made up by the fuel tank, which you don't really want to be going and drilling into to put things on there. Having said that, the very rear, where the rear light is, I think you can mount stuff on there, and I have seen that there's quite a neat little aluminium rack that you can put on the back, which I might look at getting. I'm not a big fan of having rear racks on adventure bikes, but it would help me kind of strap my drone on or something like that. So again, you're kind of like limited to soft luggage designed for enduro bikes on this bike, until someone comes along and develops a different system for it, which might happen. foot pegs. The foot pegs are super wide. They definitely feel like aftermarket things that you would get as an upgrade as opposed to OEM foot pegs. Really comfy, really grippy. Not what else I can say about that, but yeah, they're shiny red as well. Side stand is, I think it's called a suicide stand. So basically, you put it down, you put the bike on its side, and the weight of the bike keeps the side stand down. So when you put the bike upright, it automatically flips up. You don't have to kick it up. I think once you get used to it, you'll remember that and it won't be a problem. If you in the learning phase, I can imagine the bike's going to get dropped. When you, for example, you ride along, you get off the bike, you put the side stand down to go and open a gate or something, and you realize the bike's slightly in the wrong place. So you just want to move the bike a little bit back. Most of the time you would just do that and then put it down again. I guarantee I'm going to do that and put it down again and forget that the side stand has flipped up and the bike will go down. Such is life. That's why I'm upgrading my handguards. So, the exhaust. It's the one part of the bike that from my ownership so far, I feel that it's just not at the same level as the rest of the bike. So as it comes standard, it's got it's the silencer on the rear, and you've got your pipes and your header pipe that go into the engine. Now the pipes are kind of powder coated black for some reason, and then you've got a pretty standard can on the end, and obviously you've got your O2 sensor and everything that goes into that. Now I think that AJP expect most people to get rid of that and upgrade it to a Doma. I think that exhaust is on there purely for emissions. I don't know, but I think it's there for emissions to make sure it's legal. When I first got the bike, I got this bike new from the factory, and when I fired it up, it was quite smoky, and I was a little concerned about that. It felt like it was kind of burning oil. And you could see that on the exhaust that it wasn't, some of the connections weren't quite tight, and you could see little bits of condensation and a little bit of smoke escaping from there. It was quite sooty. So I dropped Telmo, who is the chief technical guy at AJP, a message, and he basically explained that from factory fresh, they just need to bed in a little bit. And to his credit, over those 8 miles, it stopped doing that, and it has all tightened up in the places where it needs to tighten up. But I can't help feeling that essentially money's been saved on that exhaust system because they don't expect people to keep it. Now, will I upgrade it to a Doma exhaust? So the Doma are the people that make the exhaust, the aftermarket exhaust of this bike. 90% of people have that exhaust on this bike that I've seen online at least. I think it gives, you can get it as part of a power-up kit. I think it does increase the power. I don't know, like in my head, I think I've read somewhere from high 40s as standard to low 60s in terms of horsepower, which feels like a huge increase from just putting a different exhaust system on. I have ridden a bike with the Doma exhaust. It is loud. So I don't know, I'm gonna stick with stock to start off with. It sounds great, the stock exhaust, but it is, I'm not going to say it's quiet because it's not whisper quiet. It is a single and you can hear it, but compared to the Doma, it is a lot quieter. For me, this is not a rally bike to go and kind of burn through a desert and, you know, rip it up. It's an adventure bike for me, and part of an adventure bike for me is trying to kind of keep low impact. So I think I'm going to stick with this and see how I get on. If I feel that I need more power, then it's good to know that that is there if I need it. But as standard, for relatively tame adventure riding, a bit of tech work and all of that kind of stuff, I'm just going to stick with the standard can and see what happens. I know that if you do go for the power upgrade and you get the Doma exhaust, Thork Racing do an ECU remap, which is designed for that. And again, looking at Roger, who's just done that on his bike, it's designed to smooth out the throttle response and add a little bit more power to the bike. So yeah, lots of options to, I guess, make it more rally ready. Okay, so the last bit really of notable stuff is the tyres. So they are Continental TKC 80s. They're quite a rounded profile. You can't help but look at them and feel that they're more orientated for the road. I work with Adventure Spec. We have Motors tyres. I will definitely be putting the Motors Ralzis on this bike, which I think will be a much better tyre for more aggressive riding and more dirt focused riding. So yeah, they're going to get an upgrade. But yeah, as standard, it comes with TKC 80s. Okay, servicing. So, you know, everyone asks questions about servicing on bikes. You know, enduro bikes, my KTM is meant to be serviced every 15 hours, which is obviously ridiculous for adventure riding. So I've kind of extended that to about 30 hours. I did a 2,000-mile route through the Trans-Euro Trail, and I didn't service it at all on that, apart from before I left and when I got back. On this bike, the servicing, I think, is the first one's about 600 miles. That's your first service to kind of make sure that everything's tight and the valves are adjusted. And then I think it's about every 3,000 miles after that. So, you know, in reality, the amount of miles I'm doing on this, that might be one service a year, maybe. Maybe two if I'm lucky enough to do more miles. So it's definitely not in like the Tenere T700 category, which is probably in the tens of thousands of miles before you need to service. But really, it just depends how many miles you're going to do on it. For me, it's just not a problem. It's really not an issue. You know, if I had to service this more, I think I would still do it. But that's based on me in my current situation of having a young family and actually not having a huge amount of time to go riding. Whereas if I was riding every day or big adventure riding and putting kind of tens of thousands of miles on the bike, then yeah, it might be a different consideration. But you know, it's one of those things, isn't it? You got to balance it out, what you get in terms of performance and weight and all the rest of it, and then versus how much you have to look after it. I'm not fazed at all by the servicing. The other thing is, when I was talking to John Mitch at Rally Raid about this bike, he commented that it's much easier to work on than other bikes like the 690. So, you know, again, if you're going to do a lot of stuff at home yourself, maybe that's a good thing. So one of the big things that I was thinking about before I bought this bike, and other people have thought this as well and commented on it, is the availability of parts. So on one hand, you don't need a lot of aftermarket parts because the bike's so ready to go when you buy it new. But things break. On my KTM, if I break something, kill switch or I don't know, whatever, I can just get the part number, go online, buy it, and it's there within a day. It's fantastic. On an AJP, you know, it's not quite the same. And it's definitely something that I thought about before making the decision to buy it. Having said that, AJP is a tiny factory in Portugal, in the middle of Europe. They're literally a phone call away. I know for a fact that I could not pick up the phone and speak to the head technical guy at KTM. You wouldn't get past the secretary at the front desk if you could even get that far. AJP, they're really, really easy to communicate with. They're really friendly, they're really helpful. It feels like they're going out of their way to kind of help their customers and be part of that community. And they've invested a lot there. So they do have quite a good dealer network around Europe. My local dealer is in Cumbria, which is, I don't know, maybe like 60, 70 miles away, something like that. And he has a good amount of aftermarket parts. There's some more dealers down in the south of England. But the bottom line is, I can phone the factory up and request stuff direct from there if I needed to, which I think is pretty unique. So I don't know, maybe that's just for me because I have contacted them and I am going to be doing some work with them, but it's my understanding that they're very approachable. I don't think the parts availability are going to be as good as KTM. I don't think I might be getting it the next day, but I think I'll be surprised if I have to wait longer than a week. So yeah, not planning on breaking anything anyway. So yeah, that's the parts. What else to say about the bike? I guess the only other kind of thing that I think you can tell, I'm excited by this bike, and I've got some big kind of aspirations for the bike. Wanted to do a big trip this year, do the TET Northern Spain. I don't think that's going to happen, but I still think that I'm going to be able to get out and do some good adventure miles on this. The only thing that I really don't like about this bike is the graphics on it. I was chatting with someone about it earlier on, and he was like, yeah, it's like the work experience guy did it, you know, in the graphics department. Sorry AJP graphics guy, I don't mean to kind of, I don't mean to be rude, but I do think that the way the bike looks could be improved, and I am going to be doing some graphics on this myself, and I know that a lot of other people are doing that as well, and there's templates out there that you can get hold of. So yeah, anyway, on all my bikes I kind of take off all the racy stuff. You know, if you're going to go and do rallies on this, maybe it looks fine and it's, you know, it's all designed to look fast and all the rest of it, but that's not me, that's not the look I'm after, so I'm going to change that. So yeah, that's it, that's my recap. I'm really sorry that I haven't really been able to put more miles on and give more of an in-depth report on how it rides, but that's all to come. I think for all of us, we're just in this kind of patient waiting game to see what happens with this coronavirus situation. I'm healthy, my family's healthy, my friends and colleagues are healthy, and that's the important thing. And I hope that you guys are. One more thing. Okay guys, I have one more favour to ask. Thank you for getting to the very end of this film. I always forget to talk about my little side project, which is called Shoot and Ride. And it's for anyone who their real reason for riding is as much about the photos they come back with as the riding itself. And that's such a kind of important thing to me. So I have this side project. It's a monthly email newsletter where I just share some of my inspiration, some of the techniques I use and what other people are doing, and a little bit around kind of, I'm a bit more into design as well as filmmaking, so it's got some of that in it as well. I've got a load of stickers and t-shirts and posters, so just follow the link, the description of this YouTube video, and sign up, and as a reward for signing up I will give you a free sticker, a free Shoot and Ride sticker, and the more of these stickers that we sell, the more money I can generate to work with really talented illustrators to create more cool stuff for this little project. So thank you again for your time. Hopefully see you on the monthly newsletter, and yeah, enjoy your shoot and riding.